Howdy folks, welcome to our next exit. We've got a neat little interview with a couple that we met through the YouTube channel, Jeff and Laurie Hurd, and we're in up in New York at Roundout. We did the interview at Timothy Lakes down in Pennsylvania, and then we met up with them again here in New York. And they're in their early 50s and they're just wanting to go full timing. Like a lot of us, they've been watching YouTube videos and figuring out how it's done, and they're taking a little bit different approach. But it's a long video, so I won't waste any more time trying to explain it. We'll jump right into them and let them explain it, and we'll see you on the other end. Thanks. Jeff and Laurie Hurd. Hello.
Hello.
So, I guess to start out with, whose idea, how did it start about full-time RV living? Usually there's a story behind the first one brave enough to bring that up.
Yeah, shall I start?
Go.
Well, our approach towards full-time RVing, we didn't really realize at the time that that's what we were going to do. Our focus was really on not working. That was really our primary goal that we were trying to achieve. We've both been in the workforce full-time for about 35 years now. We always knew that we wanted to retire sooner than later, and I guess everybody's approaches of when and how they're going to retire is a little different, and for us the when was easy as soon as we could afford to. It was really a financial question, and due to some health concerns that we had, some issues, we really made us acutely aware that the when should indeed be as soon as possible. So it was really a matter of, well, how do we actually not stay employed, to not have to be employed, to generate income to be able to support ourselves? Because if we could accomplish that, then we wouldn't have to work and we would have a lot more freedom to do whatever we chose to do with our remaining days. So that was our primary focus. Now, how we got to full-time RVing was a bit of a story that unfolded on its own. So
let me interject quickly, because people may not realize you guys are not anywhere close to what the average retirement age. Y'all are a little bit younger, right?
And that's interesting. I guess there's this preconceived age out there that you have to be to be able to retire, and I think some people actually approach it that way. They probably don't give it much thought, and they just go, when I reach whatever, say, the government based on Social Security says this is when you should retire, or when we'll pay you some of your money that you've paid in over the years, we'll give a little bit of it back to you at 67 in our case for our age, which is full retirement. Then that goes, I guess you can retire. But for us, we said that's not really going to work for us. We may not be here when we're 67, and we'd really like to be able to enjoy what we have now when we're healthy and when we have the energy to be able to do so. So our goal was retire as soon as we were financially able. So it was really just a numbers game for us in terms of money. As soon as we could find a lifestyle that we said we're comfortable with this much money, if this is all the money we have for the rest of our lives to live off of, we would be happy. Then we said we're set, and we believe we've reached that point.
So how long was it from the time you got serious and said, okay, we want to retire, we want to quit working, from then until either you have retired or you will retire? Is that months or years or decades? Or
I'd say a year.
So a year.
I think when we really got serious about it, in November of 2016, we discovered she had a brain aneurysm, and thank the good Lord, there was intervention done almost immediately. Less than 4 weeks later, she had craniotomy, and she has 2 titanium aneurysm clips now, and the intervention was a permanent fix. So,
and that stepped stuff up.
Absolutely. It really kind of made us aware, look, we're not promised us tomorrow. We all know this fundamentally, but really until, I think, for us, we needed kind of that trigger to say, wait a minute, what are we really waiting for? If it's just more money, and I'm a spreadsheet guy too, so I sit here and I do all the hypotheticals, and I say, look, maybe if we are comfortable living on this type of cash flow, we can retire now, and we should be perfectly fine for the rest of our lives, as long as we're content with this meager amount of what I consider fairly.
So you obviously started preparing many years earlier to be able to do that thing.
Absolutely. We focused on saving money, knowing that one day we would need to retire, and we're like most people who probably don't necessarily count on Social Security. We certainly didn't, even when we were much younger, and I think probably more people coming into the workforce even have more doubts about whether they'll actually be able to see any of those benefits made available to them. So we prepared outside of that as well, and it's definitely paid off.
So who was the first one? We kind of got up to, okay, we want to retire as soon as we can. We understand that we're not invincible.
Right.
I'm going to go enjoy life. Did one of y'all do it, or did somebody stumble across a YouTube thing, or just see a RV down the road?
Yeah,
or?
it was probably me. I'm always the one theory crafting stuff to figure out how it is that we can do whatever it is. Because there's a lot of enjoyment in just the thought, the creation part, or the thought process of how would we do something and come up with these crazy ideas, and obviously never pursue them, but we thought of all kinds of crazy things over the years that we would like to pursue, but always just never really ended up pursuing it at all. We were looking at other options, maybe like tiny homes. I think we'd initially watching some things on there, and I kind of like the concept of being more self-sufficient, maybe having a small piece of property, maybe being able to generate your own energy sources with solar power and things like that. Maybe just we wanted to downsize. We knew we wanted to do that. I've enjoyed having a house and property over the years, but recently it's become more of a burden than it has been a pleasure. So I knew I was ready to downsize. We also realized we weren't happy with all the stuff that we'd acquired over the years, so that really wasn't bringing us much fulfillment. So we didn't mind to minimize at the same time. I think those were things that were certainly important for me, and I believe they were for you as well.
Yeah.
So we looked at tiny homes. That didn't make a lot of sense because they really weren't very mobile. Not that we knew we wanted to be mobile at that time. We just knew we didn't have a place to settle. My son's going to stay in New York because that's kind of where he grew up. That's home for him. Our daughter, she just turned 28. She's getting married in November. She lives in Tucson, Arizona. And all of our family, we were born and raised in a small town in Tennessee, and they're all still there. So there's really no place that we would decide to go, well, let's go move in any of these.
One certain place.
Certain place. And it kind of led us to, it probably makes more sense for us because we really didn't have a duration of time that we needed to be mobile. Quite frankly, it was really more which of our children have grandkids first. And that's probably where we'll end up buying a house.
That makes good sense, yeah.
So, but it might be a few years before that happens, and it could be more than that. So we said it probably makes more sense just for us to be a little bit more mobile. And we were looking at the tiny homes. They did not look convenient to move around. And I know we were sitting in the bonus room, as we usually do one day, and I was talking to Laurie, and I said, why don't these people just buy like a nice travel trailer? Because they're made to move around. I'm sure they have some really nice ones. We haven't really shopped or looked at anything recently, but with all the technology changes over the years, I was pretty confident that they had some really nice rigs out there. And I said, well, why don't we look into doing something like that? Would you consider that? Because I think we could probably do that for very inexpensively. And she said, of course.
Sure.
Go for it. Yeah, let's
check
do
it out.
Look, we're both kind of burnt out on our jobs, and we work for great companies, both of us do, and it's less about us leaving either of our employees. It's more about us doing what is important for us at this point in our life. So, yeah, we said let's find a way that we can make this happen, and we're happy with a smaller amount of income and less things, and really just having the freedom and the
So
time
how
to
much
do
time
things.
passed from when you asked that question to Laurie? She said, yeah, and because we're in your RV now. You've
Yeah.
obviously bought one.
Yes, we did.
So how much time is that from, yeah, maybe to boom, we bought one?
Well, that was probably October, November of last year when I think we started watching some videos on YouTube. I think Chris and Cherie of Technomania was the first ones we'd watched. It was a little bit of a validation for us because I looked at them and I said, well, look, these guys they have professional careers, they're intelligent, they're very responsible, and they've chosen to live this life. Because I was coming at it from an angle of desperation. More like we really are just doing this because we need to, because it's what allows us to be able to retire. So we'll make those sacrifices, and this is basically the accommodations. This will be our lifestyle. And we were both okay with it. So we didn't really think anything about it, although we thought others would probably think it was pretty strange. It's actually very reassuring to see that no, people actually chose this because it has some advantages and some really nice perks to it that we had probably never really even considered. But when we started watching these and we said, oh, well, people do it because they love to travel, we're like, well, gee, we've really never thought about it, but we would love to travel. Sure, I'd like to go visit all the national parks and see all the national monuments and be able, and everybody talked about this nice community of people where people were just very social with one another, and there was this common bond that seemed to be thread between a lot of the people out there doing that. So that was actually exciting for us, and I think as we talked about it, maybe September, October, November, I know we took some walks. We didn't even talk about, well, maybe start a YouTube channel, and this was before we'd actually seen you guys at all, and we were just trying to think of ways maybe we could generate a little bit more money if we found out that that our
So
numbers
last
really wasn't
September?
working. Yes. And then through the winter, I think the hard winter in New York, we just said, look, we've got to do something. That was January, and we said, let's do it. I said, well, at that time I said, let's sell the house And I said, let's just start right now. We'll sell it as quick as we can. Let's get it on the market in May, because that's really the right time of year to sell it, because families are transitioning through the school year and they probably like to be settled by August, September, so their kids can start into whatever school district they're going to. So we really, from February, early February, we were just up until this past Tuesday, which we closed on our house. It's been a whirlwind. It's been
Up and down.
It's been a blur of time that I can't, quite frankly, remember. We've done so many things because we fixed up our house, we sold our house, we downsized, we've sent lots of furniture to our daughter, we've sent other furniture to our parents back in Tennessee that they would use and store some for, so that we don't have to have storage.
Thank you.
Yeah, no storage.
So when did you
Rub it in.
when did you actually purchase this RV?
It was in June.
June. So you kind of the first time out was September, or when you started getting serious about maybe an RV, and then by
Yes.
June, so like 9 months.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's pretty quick.
Yes, we probably about April, I said, let's put a target. We have to be mobile, because that time we decided we just need to be mobile. That was what I wanted to do. Not that we were going to quit work right away. That was still optional. We don't have to do that. We can do that whenever we want to, but we had discovered Thousand Trails, and I don't know where we saw that first, but I know we had learned a lot about it through one of your videos, and you had recommended another couple that also posted some information.
RV Love.
RV Love. So I remember reading that as well, and it sounded almost too good to be true,
Yeah.
because when I went back and crunched my numbers, I said, well, realistically, we can make this number, and I had some number plugged in for campground fees, we can make that 0. And then all of a sudden that makes the finances, the math, even that much more attractive. And it's like, well,
Yes.
look, this is really a no-brainer. Let's just do it. So we went ahead and we bought a Thousand Trails membership, because the road we lived on, we ultimately decided we wanted a Class A. We'd started off looking at everything and just racking our brains trying to decide what was the best fit for us. And ultimately, after thinking we might go really, really small, we took the other off the end of the spectrum. We went with the Class A, and we're really glad we did. That's another little bit of another story.
Why don't you tell us what it is you actually, what this make
What your
and model?
coach is.
Yeah.
It
Link.
is it's a 2004 Holiday Rambler, which is, I believe, made by Monaco. It's an Endeavor 40 DST. So it has 2 opposing living slides, which is what we really liked. It only has a single bedroom slide, which is okay. If we had to
And
compromise,
this is
on-
like a small apartment. I mean, this is a nice, you walk into here,
it's
feels like home.
It doesn't feel like, I know many times we had made, when we would come home from stressful days, we would talk about, you know what, we'll live in a cardboard box under a bridge somewhere to get out of the rat race. And at some point I believed that when I was emotionally tired and strained and wore out, but really when we went to look at other RVs and everything, I realized quickly that, wow, I'm really not willing to make,
Not
Yeah.
willing to go the
Much.
cardboard box.
Just in case.
if I don't have to. And when we looked at the numbers, it's like I don't have to. I mean, really, I could pinch every single penny and really boondock all the time and really buy something really small. But again, I think the more we thought about it, it's like, well, that's really not the situation we're in. We're not doing this really because we absolutely have to. There's more to this, and we can actually make a really enjoyable lifestyle by doing this, and it really tick all the boxes that we want. We want to be mobile, we want to downsize, we want to minimize, we want to have a small amount of cash flow, and we want to have the freedom to go and do what we want to do.
Right.
And it's like, wow, that's kind of how the story unfolded to lead us to full-time RVing. It wasn't like, I want to go travel and see the country, we should go full-time RV. It was really a totally different perspective, and all the criteria just kind of led to this.
When you purchased, now have you had RVs of any kind before?
When we were younger, we always camped quite a bit. All of our families and their friends, our church family, usually once a year we would all go camping at a place in Tennessee, and it was just the highlight. It was what we looked forward to every single year. People have boats. We like to bass fish and fish. So we had some exposure to that. We had a pop-up camper. We did tent camping, and we actually had an RV. We never pulled the RV. We actually,
Fifth wheel.
it was a fifth wheel, yes, and we bought it, and it was just set up on a lake permanently. So we were exposed to the type of amenities. Now it's very, very old compared to some new ones, because we were talking back in the early 90s, mid-90s when we were doing this. So we had some exposure, but nothing recent enough that I would say I would be experienced with RVs. So it was really a new learning process to really get familiar with what they are today.
So that's probably a big, I think for a lot of couples, is that they maybe have especially not a big, smaller RV, a trailer or something, maybe is not quite as intimidating. But buying something with a big diesel engine and slides and stuff, was there a process to, because you spend a big wad of money on something you don't know anything about, are you mechanical enough where you could go and inspect it? Did you hire somebody to inspect it? Did you buy a maintenance, a warranty program?
I did.
Any of that stuff?
I wish I had taken, it would have been smarter. Obviously, if I wished I'd have done it, I would have done it that way, but I didn't. I was in a little bit of a hurry. I researched as much as I was willing to take the time, because there's just so much material out there. It would have, and
You researched to find the right rig, or you researched about this rig you had already found?
a lot of different, a little of both.
Both? Okay.
Yes, exactly. So I wasn't so intimidated. Yes, I'm fairly mechanically inclined. I've done some mechanicing in my past when I was much younger. So I'm at least familiar with engines and how they work, and transmissions and drivetrains and things like that. And I've owned a house. We've been homeowners now for almost 32 years. So you just get pretty handy if you don't like paying people. And I'm not scared to break something in an attempt to fix it. So this was really no different, quite frankly, for me.
So it wasn't an intimidating thought thinking of buying a big
No.
motorhome?
No, only driving it, quite frankly. That was the part.
Tell us,
Just
that's
the
an
driving.
interesting story, I think.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
bought it, you bought it in a different area than we
We
did.
did. Yes, we bought it in Rhode Island, in West Greenwich, East Greenwich, doesn't matter. In Rhode Island, I think it's probably about 200 miles from where we live, which was in Ulster County, New York. I didn't trust myself to drive it back. I'd also watched some stuff on YouTube once we decided that we were probably going to buy this particular rig if it was still available. I'd read some stuff where maybe these don't handle so well, or they have some certain gearboxes and certain setups that maybe they're a little bit more
Meaning the
prone.
Endeavor or the Holiday?
Yeah, I think it was a Holiday Rambler, as best I can remember, and really on the particular Monaco chassis, maybe a certain age range on the Roadmaster chassis. Where, anyway, that was the fear. I knew I was going to buy the one that was just going to be a total nightmare to drive. So with all of that and with the inexperience, I said it's probably a lot better for everybody else, including me, on the road, that I actually hire somebody to drive it home. So we did that, and the guy who drove it back was actually really, he seemed to not have any problems handling it at all. He drove a little faster than I wish he would have for me, because again, it was terrifying for me to sit in the driver's seat and not have my hands on the steering wheel and my foot on the accelerator and the brake.
And the brake.
I just didn't have any feedback, and it was really difficult. The inertia from a large top-heavy coach like this was something that I haven't experienced, so it was a little different for me.
Laurie, were you with him at the time that
No.
I was driving?
She was
Behind. I
following.
was behind.
Yes, so we'd all drove up in a car together, and then she followed the gentleman who was driving, and myself, because I rode with him. Because actually the idea was that he would let me drive some, and he would try to train me, and I was just such a nervous wreck that didn't
Oh,
work
you didn't
out.
do that?
Oh, no.
No, we lost our muffler on the way home. It fell off, and she called. We had a really hard bump. I remember when it happened, and she called and she said, "Hey, your muffler's off. You're dragging, and its sparks are going everywhere." Fortunately, we were able to pull over. I bought a whole trunk full of tools just in case, because my biggest fear was and it still is, quite frankly, I don't know how reliable the coach is going to be, and it's really stressful and nerve-wracking to be broke down in a car. I think it's going to be even much worse in a large rig like this, because
Was there anything that you were looking for in this one, or a size? Do you have any comments? You're just looking for an RV. Was you looking for any special size for the parks, to get in the parks, or bigger to live in, or?
You know what, my thing was just have a washer and dryer.
Oh, there you go.
And if it doesn't, no, not so much. I don't want to look at that one.
I think that's when we decided we wanted Class A. I was
Yes.
really trying to convince her that we wanted to do a Class B, or really small travel trailer. And the reason I said this is because I was trying to learn from people who had went before me. And a lot of people seem to start out larger and then they end up downsizing. They go smaller. I see that more common than people buying smaller
Let's
and then
get this on
migrating the other way.
the thing. That's perfect for what the question we're going to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a ton of people are on that size thing.
Mm-hmm.
So let me start it off. So we know you've got this 40-foot
Mm-hmm.
Endeavor, but when you were looking, was there anything that you specifically did want or didn't want, or a length that you wanted, any of that kind of stuff that was a must-have or not have?
In my mind, I thought a Class B would be good, because we wanted to be more mobile, and we liked the thought of being able to get into any of the national parks. And a lot of the people that we watch on YouTube, their tendency seemed to be start larger, and then they would actually end up downsizing, even go smaller. It seemed like they were always trying to find this quest of ridding themselves of more clutter, and because they just found that they really didn't need it, and they ended up with a smaller rig. And I think I think it was Less Junk, More Journey, Nathan, he had made a comment. He said, look, just you need to buy your rig. And I figured that I'd already kind of figured this out, but it was good to hear him say it too. He goes, you're not going to get your first one right. He said, so buy something. Don't go too crazy on what your first one is, because most likely you're going to end up with something different anyway. And I kind of suspected that was the case. But still, I wanted to try to find one that was a good fit for us, that was not just totally way off base. So in my mind, that was something smaller initially, because that's kind of seemed to
And
be
when you say smaller, what do you?
a Class B.
Oh, okay.
A Class B is kind of what I was thinking, or a very small travel trailer, maybe a 21-foot travel trailer, where we could have a single vehicle pull that, and then we'd have a car to drive around, a truck to drive around.
What was your
in.
thoughts when he was talking about a Class B and a 20-foot?
I was very resistant.
She loves
Okay.
she loves me.
I just think that is too small.
But she
It's
was
just
tiny.
too small.
But she was willing to do it. She would have done it. She would have supported me.
As you can see the smile on her face.
I
She was
know.
anxious to
Can
do
you tell
that.
how happy she is to support me in my
I
craziness?
would have.
She
Was
would
there
have.
anything on your list of things that I would really like at a certain size, or options you wanted, or didn't want?
I wanted obviously something that was a little bit bigger, because I just didn't want to feel so claustrophobic in such a small vehicle where you just have to kind of turn sideways to walk by each other.
And kind of like your.
Yeah.
I've had one person say it felt like we was camping. In the little one, we felt like we were camping and not living and relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
and
true.
I think the realization come to both of us. Again, when you're coming from the perspective, and I think our mindset influenced what we thought initially would work well for us. Again, we're not looking for this to be comfortable and travel the world and have this wonderful lifestyle that's more exotic in the way that some people portray that. And I mean, it's really nice that way. Ours was more, we're kind of escaping from the workforce, and this is it's more of something that we not had to do, but it was more of something that we were making a compromise on, versus really looking at it as something that we could really be comfortable and accomplish the same things and not have to be so, as you said, so cramped in tight quarters, at least initially. And I think the really the kicker for us is when we went to an RV show in Kingston, New York, and we started looking through, because they had all different sizes there, Class A's, they had small travel trailers, they had Class B's. And I just remember going into some of the smaller travel trailers, and the I don't know, maybe the paneling, maybe darker themes are more popular now, but they weren't lit, and they were very dark, and they were small. The quality of them, at least the ones we looked at, the build quality was not really that impressive. And I'm just like, wow, I'm going to have to live in this every single day. And I remember I told her, I said, wow, you know what, I feel actually depressed right now. And we'd even looked at some Class A's, and I'm like, I'm not even really impressed by them. And we thought, well, maybe we really need to really need to give this a hard thought on what we're doing. And we'd actually looked at the same time. There was a lady on Craigslist who had a Class A. It was a diesel pusher that was listed, and that was our first exposure to them. We really didn't know. And I said, well, let's go just check one out for the fun of it. She actually called us while we were leaving there, and I told her, I said, well, we're only about 20 minutes from you. We were at the RV show. I said, if it's not too late, we'll stop by and take a look at it. So we did that. And when we went into it, I think it was a Gulfstream. I can't remember exactly. I think it was a Crescendo. Yeah, I think it was a 38. It was like it was a 35 footer. I can't remember the exact model number now. It had 2 slides only, but when we went in, it was like, okay, the bulb went off. This is what we really are looking for. We didn't really know it until now. It sounded great to go into a Class B or into a tiny travel trailer, because that's where my mindset was, is that wasn't what I needed to do to be able to do that. But when we started pricing these, we realized, well, there's a value proposition. It really just depends on, there's something in everybody's budget range, most likely. Right. If you want a Class A, a diesel pusher, most likely, at least in our budget range, we could make that work, because quite frankly, trucks are very expensive, and travel trailers are getting even more expensive. Right. So the cost, I couldn't use cost as a justification to downsize. I mean, we could have bought something cheaper. We could have bought something that was cheaper than this in a Class A, but we said, this is what we feel comfortable with. And I think at that point we said, no, Class A. I don't think you believed me at the time.
No.
I think she's like, I hear what he said, we'll never have a Class A. And that's like, and I think she was like saying that the whole time just to like almost antagonize me. So it's like, no, we will buy the Class A. We will buy. She was using reverse.
So you actually said that?
She was using reverse psychology on it, and I didn't mind, because I was already made up my mind. It's like, no, I really won't want to, because I don't want to do this and then be miserable and then be sorry that I did it in such a way that it wasn't as good as actually we had really believed that it could be. Because again, we were doing it initially because it was more like an act of desperation. We have to do it this way because this is what our money will allow us to do, versus our mindset has started shifting, going, wow, no, we can actually do all of this for this much income. This is fantastic. This is, and from that part, it was really exciting, and that's when the washer dryer requirement became up. And that's okay, because actually I wanted one too. I didn't like the thought of it.
So we would be looking on RV Trader, and I was like, okay, what's the length? It's a 37 washer dryer. No.
Yeah, some of the shorter ones don't. I know.
Forget about it.
Forget about
Yes,
it.
that's
So then
right.
we quickly discovered you have to at least 40 feet
To get
to you
typically get a washer
to
dryer.
get a washer and
That's
dryer.
what we
know
had
that,
found.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
That's
sure
what
they
we
have
found.
them in shorter ones, but
Yeah.
I think that
But they're-
rings true.
Yeah.
harder to come by as well.
I think so.
Yeah.
So that's where we said, look, this is because we thought about going with the shorter one just because it maybe wouldn't be so intimidating to drive, at least for me. And I think she'll also drive too. I haven't drove very much. I think we were telling that I've drove less than 100 miles total, or about 100 miles total now. So it's still stressful for me at this point. I enjoy it, but I don't feel comfortable yet all the time doing it. Yesterday when we drove up here, it was raining. There was pockets of water on the road, and water does affect these. I mean, they can hydroplane, I think, just as like any other vehicle. And you won't have to worry about going back about any low limbs, because I knocked all those down on the way down here. So you're welcome for that. But it wasn't bad. It was.
And you're leaving before us too.
was-
So
We'll
what you
go
missed,
the
maybe you can
other
get them.
way.
I'll get them on the way back. So it should be clear sailing for
We're
you
going-
guys. Yes.
Jeff and Laurie are going to Rondout next Saturday, and then that's where we're headed on our way to Maine the very next day. So we'll get to see them again.
Yes.
So if we do a bad job on the video, they'll get to give us a lecture. But so you say you've only driven it about 100 miles.
That's right.
And have you driven it?
Not yet.
Have you got to ride in it?
One time.
One time?
Yes. Oh.
Yesterday.
From the office to the site.
Oh yeah?
'Cause
Was it good?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
good.
love it.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's nice.
And why have you not got to ride in it?
Well, because right now we have cars that we are driving as well as this, because we are still working.
Yeah.
So we each have to have a car, and then.
So you don't have a Toad yet?
We
Not
don't have
yet.
a Toad. We're not. I know we talked about this last night. At some point we'll probably go with a Toad, because it would be the preferred way overall. It's the best way for us to be able to enjoy time together, even when we're
Yes.
driving, because that's a special type of activity, and we won't get to do that. Right now I have company cars. We can't tow them, so we would need to purchase our own car, or perhaps I know you mentioned getting a trailer, a covered trailer to pull the car on. That's a bit intimidating for me, at least at the moment. So I see it in my future, but maybe not in my immediate
I mean, it's just so nice to have that backseat driver to explain you're going
Of
too
course,
fast.
absolutely.
And you see the traffic lights up there?
She does that on the phone.
Oh,
we stay on
so
the
you're not missing out on that
Yeah.
completely. Okay.
That's right.
Don't
yes.
feel bad. I did the same thing when we first bought this coach.
But we will. Eventually, I do see us having a Toad.
So you mentioned you have 1,000 Trails membership. What kind of camping do you think you'll be like? Will you be like 90? We're like 85 or 90% 1,000 Trails. We've done a lot of national parks and stuff out west, and right now 1,000 Trails, and the financial part of it just works great for us. Do you think you will be a large part 1,000 Trails, or are you anxious to do a lot of national parks there?
I think initially, because I'm going to be working for 2 more years, so it's almost like the way that you referred to it. It's really like we're not full-timing yet. It's more like we're living in a tiny home, and that's okay. So I will have to be able to work remotely for a couple of months. I've saved up some vacation time through the winter, so we're going to go to Tucson. So that'll give us a little bit of taste of what it's like to at least travel and work remotely. So I do anticipate we'll be using the 1,000 Trails network almost exclusively initially, because living in a box under a bridge sounds great when you're desperate, but we're not desperate anymore.
Yeah.
And I like having full hookups. I like having air conditioning. I like having a shower. I'm fine with boondocking and conserving water, but I do like to bathe. So if I'll transition into those things over time. I think I'm going to have to ease into those versus just jumping into that. But it looks really fun.
You what?
I had a question, but I lost it.
Well, we're definitely have
They'll
to.
come back.
So boondocking. solar? Do you think you'll get solar? Is that?
Actually, when the first time I climbed on the roof, I was surprised we have what I believe to be 200 watts of solar power.
Oh, there's 2 panels up there?
There's 2 panels.
Oh, really?
They're quite large. I need to get the dimensions. I got a number off of them, but I searched Google. I couldn't
But you
find
don't
anything.
have, you don't know, not aware of somewhere where you have something to turn it on or off or monitor it?
It is. Well, we've got a charge controller. It's definitely
Oh,
tied
you do?
into
Okay.
that. Yeah. So we
Okay.
got.
So you do have it and it's
Correct.
working, it's doing something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even that would be pretty nice.
It looks like it generates the most I've been able. I'm guessing it's probably 2 100-watt panels because the most I've been able to see it generates about 9.5, 10 amps according to the controller.
Okay.
So I think that's roughly about what you can expect out of 200 watts of solar panels.
Do you, have y'all joined any RV groups yet?
We have not.
Do you think you will, or you just hadn't got to open that door yet?
Exactly. It's kind of
Okay.
new to us. Again, we've been like put the blinders on and we've been focused to get we're here, and now it's like, okay, so now we have to set some new milestones in terms of what we want to do and exactly how do we want to enjoy full-time RVing, because quite frankly there's a lot of diversity in what you can do.
Oh,
if you look
yeah.
on YouTube channel, there's people who have taken U-Haul trucks and converted those into living spaces, and truly they're living on $500-600 a month Social Security, and that's kind of more where I was coming from when I kind of first started out on this journey. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where the people that were next to us in the campground we just left in Rondout Valley, wouldn't surprise me if their rig didn't cost $500,000. It was looked like a brand new, I think it was about a year old. It was a 2017
They do come in some shiny looking stuff.
They're
boy.
and it was like,
Did you see inside?
we did not.
No.
They're really nice people. We talked to them a bit. They were from California.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah, it is, but that's not
However-
what we're looking for. We're not. That's really out of our way,
not
out of
what
our
we're looking for
budget.
either.
Even if I had
Exactly.
$500,000, I'm not sure I would spend it on that. It's
Exactly.
not that it's not worth it. It's just it's not a necessity for me.
How are you addressing internet and mail?
Not very well. Well, mail we've actually got taken care of. We got a mail forwarding service. They actually had one in New York. They had several. So we've got a permanent residence now address. So we'll use that for our employment purposes and tax purposes and for car registration. So we'll continue to do that for now, and then we'll forward. We also have a PO box, and we'll use the combination of those two. Yeah. So we'll keep a mail forwarding service. Eventually, that's all we'll have is a mail forwarding service. So once we go fully mobile and we're traveling around, then we'll just have that.
Because you're going to work it, Dave, but you're here. Y'all don't do TV. You watch your TV versus if you watch it would be versus internet. How are you going to be here? I can't imagine not having some internet. You got to have some internet.
We do. So far, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
No, that's good.
We've just been using what wireless services have been available. So our first exposure was, I think it's camplink.net is a service, and it's okay.
So where you pay to get internet at the folks. Okay,
That's
so
right.
we're doing that here, but most parks don't have it. We probably we ran across maybe 5 parks that have it.
Right. So there are other options. We went to a full, an unlimited data plan with
Okay.
Verizon. We have Verizon Wireless, and we'll end up getting, I think they refer to them as jetpacks as their device. Hotspot. We'll use a hotspot to be able to continue to have internet. But that's something that we really prefer having good internet, high-speed internet
yeah, I would-
access. So we're going to have to do a lot more research on how to do that. We've got a small Wi-Fi booster. It's probably not the most premier one and the most popular one that's out there. It's probably a little less expensive just to get exposure to it, but it works perfectly fine. And then we'll probably have to end up getting some type of carrier service
And
booster
a
as
cell
well.
phone. I would think a cell phone booster would be
Absolutely.
one thing.
Yeah. Typically, I think the Wii Boost is one of the more
Yeah,
popular
that's the
ones.
one we got.
Yeah, and you find it
Yeah.
does a good job.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
Yeah, because I think we don't have a lot of. I think we've got really poor service here on our phones, at least.
Yeah, I think you're right. Even with the Wii booster, it's not
pretty
great.
weak. Yes,
Not very
exactly.
good.
So that's our idea. We'll use wireless if it's available from a service, unless depends on how well the Verizon wireless works.
For the most part, it's worked for us. Plenty good service. Here it's kind of weak, and so we went in and signed up for their internet. I've never lived in New York and only been through it once or twice.
Good for you.
Yeah, but I understand there's a lot of high taxes.
Yes.
Will y'all change your domicile state? Or you're working, so you probably can't do that right away.
I won't do that now simply because I have to re-register the vehicle, and I don't want to drive it probably to South Dakota or Texas or one of the states that they say these are the premier.
And if you're
states.
still working here, you probably there's some legal. You got to.
Possibly.
You don't want to get in a jam. You want to make sure.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the requirements are in terms of being employed where you actually have to have your physical residence. But yes, we'll continue to keep our domicile and our residence here in New York until I retire, which is in 2 years if things go as
So to
planned.
kind of we've kind of touched on it a couple times. You're going to work for another 2
2 years.
years. You're going to retire in just a few weeks.
Probably in about a month.
A month.
I'm gonna drop back to on-call status.
On call. And then y'all are going to take off 3 or 4 months this winter and go to Tucson to see
That's
your
right.
daughter?
Yes.
Is she going to get married while you're there?
She will be married actually before we get
Oh, yeah?
there. So we'll fly out there. She gets married November 9th. So we'll fly out there and we'll spend at least a week. I think you're going to spend a little longer out there. We'll come back because I need to come back early. Actually, she's coming back a couple of days earlier than she wanted to because the 15th, November 15th, which is the Friday before Thanksgiving week, that's when we leave. So we'll leave. Actually, we'll be in this park because we're going back and forth between Rondout Valley and Timothy Lake, just to keep our cost at zero and practice driving the coach,
Yeah.
which I need. It's kind of a forced thing to do.
I know she took a pull-through instead of a backup.
Oh.
So-
I did. Actually, you know what? The backing part's not intimidating to,
Oh, really?
to me at
Oh,
all.
good.
Yeah, I'd be pretty good at backing. I've had boats and stuff like that, so I'm pretty comfortable
Oh, okay.
with backing. So November 15th, we're going to head to Tennessee, and then her parents
So you'll live the real full-time lifestyle there for
about 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah.
Starting in November.
Starting in November, that's right.
Okay.
And her parents,
Nice.
nice, they're going to go with us. So the current plan is they're going to go with us. They're going to take the road trip to Tucson, and then they'll spend a little bit of time there, and then they'll fly back. So they'll be back in home time for
So
Christmas.
you're going to caravan?
Well, they're going to,
Or
most likely, our current plan, we'll have a car following us, so it will be less than ideal, but most likely we'll take turns riding in the coach and people will be driving the car to get out there. We're going to take several days to get out there. I don't see us driving probably more than 250, 300 miles a day. So we're not quite sure where we'll stay. We'll probably find Cracker Barrels, maybe Walmarts, things like that. I doubt we'll find parks along the way that'll be close enough on the path, but we'll see to maybe be able to say those. And that time of year, I don't know if they're open or have hookups, so I have to really look and see make sure that the campgrounds are
further
year
south
round.
that we go, the more.
That's what we're counting on.
I think so.
Yes, the further south they are, avoid the inclement weather.
So you're going to be able to ride in the coach when you go out there?
Potentially, it depends on who drives the car. If one of your
Oh,
parents are willing to
maybe,
drive the car, you
yeah,
might get to
I
drive ride a little bit. But most likely, she's going to be driving the
Yeah.
car and following
Okay.
me. Yeah.
Okay.
I know, it's disappointing for us too.
Well,
We're not 100% decided on that. We could always turn into company cars and buy our own personal car and get it towed. We'll see. Again, I want to see the coach really prove itself first before I really put it under a lot of stress.
but you've still got the 2-year window,
That's
you
right.
know,
Yes.
to think about this and
That is correct.
plan for it. So
Absolutely.
there's no big hurry,
That's right.
which is good.
That's what we want to do. We think in 2 years we'll do another assessment. So when we go full time, we'll either decide that we really love the size of the Class A and it's what we want to do. And if we're still happy with this rig and we think it's reliable, we'll continue to use it. Or if we think, wow, we want to spend a little bit more money and maybe get something perhaps a little bigger, maybe something with a tag axle, maybe I've heard they drive a little bit better. If I'm still struggling with feeling comfortable driving, I may.
By the time you go to Tucson, I
Yeah,
think
forget
it'll
it.
be, yeah. No, I mean, you'll
Yeah.
be comfortable.
Yes.
By the time
Oh,
you get
yes.
to Tucson, you'll have bought 5 or 10 tanks of gas.
Right, or I'll be in a Class B.
Or a Class B.
Yeah, one way or the other. So we'll make a decision at that time which direction we're going to go. Because our idea is to do this until we're 62, because that's when we can, if we choose to, get our Social Security. We may not choose to. And at some point I'll qualify at 55 I'll qualify for my pension, but it'll be a reduced pension at 55, and if I wait till I'm 60 I can get full pension. So most likely we're going to continue to live this lifestyle because it's pretty much what our finances will allow. So who knows, we may change rigs 2 or 3 times during that time frame just to figure out what we want to do, what we like.
What do your friends and family think? I mean, it's quite we saw pictures of your home as a beautiful home and 5 acres and just all of this like the American
Right.
dream kind of house.
Mhm.
And now your friends that are saying, oh wow,
Right.
Jeff's moving into a trailer house pulling down the road.
Yes, exactly.
I
Well,
mean, do they think you've gone bonkers, or do they think, wow, that's a
true.
great
Well,
idea?
Well, they've always felt sorry for Laurie because she was with me. So this
I know that
this
feeling.
is validation for them. Again, it's like that goofy Jeff. He's at it again, and my poor daughter, she's trapped with him, and it's true to some degree. But she likes it. She likes
What's your
too.
family say? Is this pretty extreme to them, or is it like, oh yeah?
I think it probably is, because it's not something that they would ever consider doing or even fathom doing?
Yeah, we come from probably conservative.
Very conservative.
Conservative
Uh-huh.
families.
So,
My parents are a little
yeah.
older, and they've been living off only Social Security for quite some time, so they live very, very meagerly. And we grew up in a trailer park. That's where I grew up. We didn't have a lot when we grew up, and I think they're really happy for us because they're like, if you can do it, you should do it. You should try. My dad, he was an over-the-road truck driver for a lot of years, and very demanding job. He's always a really good provider, but again, we grew up in the Carter era, and financially, just times were tough, and we made ends the best way that we could, and provide for his family. You know, he was a very good provider, but you know, we didn't have a lot, especially compared right today, right? And everybody says, oh, the kids growing up these days have so much more, and some of them do. I guess some of them don't. So yeah, I think overall they were happy for us. Ultimately, they realized the risk to it, right? That's the first thing that everybody does is this sounds risky, right?
Sure
What are you doing?
this
Why are you
is
doing
Risky financially or
Yeah.
bodily harm or
No.
what?
I think all of it,
No.
right? It's not a traditional lifestyle, right?
Right.
I think there's more people out there.
Depends on how much YouTube you watch. It seems traditional to us.
It does, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I think there's an unfamiliarity with
Yeah.
it, right? I think unless you are familiar with this lifestyle, your perception can be more probably on that side of people are doing it because they have to.
Yeah.
Right? They're stuck and they're living in their cars because they have no other means and they're homeless. And there's two totally ends of the spectrum. You've got people who have multi-million-dollar rigs and they can live anywhere and anyhow they want to, and they still choose to do this. So I think most people are less familiar with that and more familiar with maybe the people who are a bit more destitute in doing it. And maybe that's the first thing that comes to their mind. But when we shared with them, hey, look, here's what we have, here's what we're going to be living in, I think it changes their perspective a little bit. It's like, oh, I see. Well, you guys aren't actually tent camping.
And they
You're
start
not?
seeing some pictures of
Correct.
you around the country.
Exactly.
And
And when you
beautiful
start,
places.
sure, and when you start explaining the finances, well, look, here's all the cash flow that I need to be able to support this lifestyle. Oh, you don't pay any rent? There's no campground fees? No, we have water, electricity, and sewer, and it's all included as long as we move every 3 weeks and stay at 1,000 Trails Campground, or possibly an Encore, depending on how we want to do the Trails collection, and we will definitely do that. Our cost is zero. Really? Yeah, and you're going to be, I know, and you're still here paying $2,000 a month in property taxes.
You better get some brochures to hand out.
Yes.
Say, do you have one of them?
So it's not too hard to convince people from
Yeah.
a financial perspective, and actually just from an enjoyable lifestyle, that it's actually pretty appealing.
Well, you talk about last night quite often being frugal and living a minimalist kind of lifestyle. Our expense thing that we put out every month puts us around 40 and 42,000. Are you going to be under that, do you think?
I want to try to be under that, only to prove that I can for probably the first 5 or 6 months, because I want to go, if I really need to pinch pennies, if I really have to go to that frugal budget, as you put it, I want to know that I can really do it. Is that really a realistic number? I want to test it and make sure it's right, but no, that's not the budget. I want to stay more in that price range that you're talking about, because I said, look, we're pretty simple. The things that we like to do, we're not going to be doing a crazy amount of excursions, because we just we have never done that in the past. It's going to take a radical change for us, and we're probably not going to be able to reprogram ourselves at this point in our lives to go do something far more exotic that costs a lot more money than what we're used to doing. And fortunately, the things that we like to do are fairly simple, and they don't have to cost a lot of money, which really makes it even nicer.
Yeah.
So I definitely think, I'm hoping that we can stay in that $4,000 a month. I really think that's the upper limit of what we'll need to spend. And of course, we're going to have a nice contingency plan in case we need to spend some money on the coach, because to me that's really the biggest expense
Unknown,
it
yeah,
is,
yeah.
the maintenance of the coach. Yeah,
You could pop out $5,000 or $10,000 real easy.
Yes.
exactly.
So you've been living in this for about a month now, a little over a month?
We bought it. We moved in, I think, July the 2nd. I think we started staying in it full time. Even when we still had the house, we could have stayed at the house. But we said, no, we just want to start living in it. And we enjoyed it, quite frankly, because no pressure coming home. I don't have to look at the yard to mow. I don't have to look at the stuff that I've neglected. I don't have to look at the deck and go, yes, I need to stain that. I needed to stain it last fall, and I still don't want to stain it right now. Oh, I see the project over there in the corner that I didn't finish the crime molding up there last year, and I don't want to do it now, so I'm not even going to look at it. And then we
Move my
retreat.
chair a little bit.
We retreat into the bonus room where we just basically, that's the only part of the house that we stayed in. And no, so it was really nice coming home to this. It was small. It's not, we're decluttered. We need to declutter a little bit more. And we're very happy. Quite frankly, we're very happy. This definitely feels like home. I'm very pleased.
That was the
living here.
question. Does it feel like home? And what do you miss compared to your big home? Is there anything? Because you mentioned
Good
you
for
like to
you.
cook and that kind of stuff. Are you able to prepare the meals how you want to? And
Yeah, the Instant Pot.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Do you
Yeah.
use the Instant Pot?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So to you, it's
It's
this
fantastic.
is home,
yes.
and you've got everything you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I
Yeah.
mean, we couldn't be happier.
Not
Truly,
a sad moment when
No.
we signed those papers.
I
Not
like-
a sad moment.
No,
Good.
not at
No.
all. Matter of fact, we
Good.
remember going over. It was a Sunday afternoon, and we went back over. And my son, he still lived at home at the time, but he's out on his own now. And I think the cats were there by themselves. But we got there, and the house was mainly empty, and it just seemed so sad. We didn't really want to be there at that time. It was just
I don't even want to be here. I don't
we-
even like being here.
yeah, we'd been there and done that. We were
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
a really nice house, like you said. We enjoyed it while we had it, but it just wasn't where we are. We're ready to take that next chapter, turn the next page, and jump into that next chapter of our lives. And that's just not part of it.
So the transition didn't hurt.
No, that was
Good.
really good. That it was actually
Good.
it was a breath of fresh air for
Yes.
us in many
Good.
many ways.
Relief at last.
Absolutely.
Very good.
And
Well, it sounds like you set up a great target and objective, and you're just steamrolling, right? Checking the boxes and getting it done.
I like to have intentional plans. I haven't always been that way in my life, but even through work and having to discipline myself to really have focus and have a goal, have an intentional milestone to reach, and be able to work and focus on achieving that is very important. If not, I find myself just procrastinating stuff, thinking about stuff, imagining stuff, but never really pulling the trigger and doing it. And so I'm glad somehow we've matured enough in our lives where it's like, if we want to do something, if we don't take the initiative, it's not going to happen. And we take the ball and we run
Just
with
start
it.
doing it.
And we do it. And that's where we're not finished. We're to me, this is the very first step.
Just
So
the beginning of a
this
new
is
journey.
this is
That's
just the
right.
beginning. Absolutely, it is.
That's cool.
So I think for you guys sitting out there, this kind of paints a picture. We're 70, and it works for us. We're living our dream that we worked all these years for. Set up a budget, a lot like how you guys talked about. Y'all are in your early 50s. You made a decision. We want to retire. We want to retire sooner rather than later.
That's it.
And you're making it work.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking that it's something you want to do, you certainly can make it happen. Just like Jeff and Laurie, whether you're their age or you're a nice, sweet old couple like Coral and I, our age, you can certainly do it.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you guys for sharing your story with us and all
Very happy to.
our viewers.
Yes.
So that's a long video. Those of you that hung through it to the end, I hope you had some popcorn and a soda pop. But anyway, if you want to do this lifestyle, that's one way to do it. And I don't know if they'll work that whole 2 years or not. I think they're financially in a position where they could retire anytime and quit their jobs and hit the road. It just kind of depends on how big a safety net they want to build. But they're a great couple. We've gone out to dinner with them several times and got to visit with them. We look forward to meeting them again. Hope you enjoyed them. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. If you hadn't subscribed, please subscribe. And keep the wheels rolling. Stay safe. Bye-bye.